Howdy folks, welcome back to Dig Drive DIY. Every once in a while in the comments we get a question about one of the buildings here on our property, like can you give us a tour of your shop, or what's that block building beside your house used for? Well, I've done a full tour of the shop. In a recent video the block house was featured and I kind of talked about it a bit. I've taken you inside the house for some of our remodel projects, so you've been inside there. But there was a viewer in a real recent video that asked, what's the little white building in the middle of your driveway for? Well, like all the buildings on this property, it has a story to tell too. And it's a bit of an imposter though, probably not what you think. So in today's video, I thought I would take kind of a deep dive, tell you a little bit about the history of our property, what this milk house was built for, what it's been used for recently, and some future plans that we have for it coming up. So like I said, it's probably not what you think.
Dig Drive DIY.
There's a sidewalk leading from my mom and dad's front porch out to the road. When I was a kid, I used to walk that sidewalk every morning and every afternoon to get on and off the school bus. While I waited here in the morning, I remember staring out across the horizon and looking at that farm over there across the field at the next road over. I remember daydreaming about what went on over there at that farm. I didn't know who lived there. We never had a reason to drive by it. It was way too far away for me to ride my bike to, so it was a mystery and it just existed in my imagination. But as you get older, the distances get shorter, and by the time I was out of high school, that farmstead across the field was just the neighbor's place, and it was occupied by renters. And it was truly the definition of an old farmhouse, well over 100 years old. Matter of fact, this house has been in this location for more than 100 years, but it wasn't even built here. My late Grandma Cove told me that when she was a little girl in the 1920s, she remembers watching the spectacle of this house being moved here from somewhere over in Ohio. I can't imagine the effort involved to move a house back then, but they did it all the time. The old farmhouses were pretty basic then too, built as inexpensively as possible with no bathroom or indoor plumbing, and insulation and good windows were unaffordable luxuries as well. Many of the houses around here that were built in this style are being torn down nowadays, because at some point it just costs more to fix them up than it does to tear them down and start over. My grandma and grandpa's old farmhouse was a perfect example where it was just cheaper and much easier to build new than it was to remodel it. So now you see lots of newer homes on older farmsteads as a result. But in the mid-1900s, this place was a bustling farmstead with lots of modern buildings and a barnyard full of livestock. The original owner and house mover was named Otis Bolton, and you can still find evidence of him here to this very day. He built this big granary, and it would have been quite an impressive barn in its day. It has a giant elevator in the center that would take grain that gets dumped on the floor and carry it up to the second level. I can't imagine what it would have cost to build this in the 1920s, but you couldn't even afford to build it like this in the 2020s. My grandma also told me that years later, when Mr. Bolton passed away, she and her mother were tasked with cleaning up this place for the upcoming estate sale. She said it was pretty run down and filthy at that point, but they always thought they'd find money stashed in the walls or buried in the yard somewhere because, well, Otis Bolton was just that kind of way, I guess. I've always kept my eyes peeled for hidden jars of money when we remodel or dig somewhere around here, but so far all I've found is junk. So then the farm was sold to a Frank Messman in the 1940s, who kept it as a working farm up until he retired and built a new house next door in 1978. The entire farm then, including the house and all the surrounding acreage, was sold again to my cousin's family in the late 70s, and now the Rumpkes would farm it and live here for a couple decades. It was part of their operation, and they continued to store grain in the Big Red Granary, and they even built some new grain bins out back. The Rumpke family remodeled the house and made a few changes to improve the looks of the place. Most of the old dilapidated smaller buildings were torn down, and even the big red barn that was right in the middle of the driveway, it was taken down too. I can just barely remember them tearing it down when I was a teenager, but you could still see the outline of the building in the grass even before I built my shop over the top of it. Fast forward to 1999, and the Rumpke family had moved on to a different home, but they still owned this property and they were looking for new renters for the house. I was several years out of high school at this point and looking to move into my own place, so when they offered it up for a cheap monthly rate, a couple buddies and I split the rent and we started living here. We had a lot of fun and really enjoyed our time here when it was a happening bachelor pad, but within a few years, our lady friends were taking us in different directions. So in 2002, Kara and I were given the chance to buy 2 acres and the house, and we've now spent the last 23 years making improvements to every square foot of these 2 acres. Here's the front porch and the magnificent landscaping. In 2003, we wanted to have our wedding right here at our new home, but not until we gave this place a serious makeover. I fixed up the driveway with new edges and many loads of stone, hauled in mulch and painted up the porch, did the landscaping, you name it. Everything was starting to come together and it looked really good. But there was still just one major eyesore in the middle of the driveway. You see, when that huge centerpiece of a barn was here, the west end of it served as the electrical service entry point to the entire farmstead. That's where the meter base was and all the electrical distribution to the various buildings. When they tore the barn down in the 90s, they had to create a new mounting point for all the electrical panels. So they sunk a couple of cut-off telephone poles in the ground, attached some boards to the face of them, and then used that as the new electrical service entry point. That ugly cluster sticking up in the middle of the driveway was the least attractive thing on our property now. And with our wedding a little over a week away, Kara asked if there was a way I could cover it up. So I got this idea to build a replica milk house around it with some scrap lumber I had. Milk houses were little buildings on dairy farms, and inside they usually had a cold water holding tank where the warm milk cans were cooled and stored until the milkman came by to pick them up on his route. There were a couple old milk houses on old farms around here, so we picked one that we liked. I measured it up, and then my friend Clint helped me to feverishly build during the week of our wedding. There's the little milk house I used to model ours. That's what I measured up. It's getting pretty sad. If it weren't for the last minute, I wouldn't get anything done. But the project came together, and by the time of our wedding, nobody would have guessed that the little milk house behind us during the ceremony still had wet paint in the corners. So that is how our little faux antique milk house came to be. We didn't do much at all with this building for the next 15 years other than just store our recyclables in here. There really wasn't a lot of room inside, and we didn't even put an actual floor in it, so we just put our bags of used aluminum cans in here. But in 2019, a new plan for the milk house emerged. My twin daughters wanted a little place of their own to hang out. So we gathered up some materials and spent that spring transforming our little recycling shed from a den of cobweb infestation into something we'd actually want to use. I leveled it, put more stones underneath, and installed an actual floor. Then we painted the inside, insulated it a bit with some styrofoam, and built a loft for overnight stays. Once it was finished out, the girls transformed it into the Little White House, which was a very nice eating establishment with a very unique menu.
All right, I'll get that in a few minutes.
Thank you very much. I thought I'd just take a little break and get something to eat at my favorite restaurant. Got a lot of interesting choices. I went for the BLT with a side of banana. Both of the girls, as well as Kara and I, have made tons of memories in the past 5 years as a result of this little imposter of a building. Realistically, it's neither a milk house nor a restaurant, but in our minds it certainly was. It's sad to say now, but the girls are getting pretty close to growing out of their little playhouse. However, if we're lucky, I'm hoping we can keep it maintained just long enough to see the next generation of entrepreneurs that want to make a go of having their own restaurant in Grandma and Grandpa's driveway. I'm in no rush though, because in the meantime, we've got another project coming up soon that is going to involve a few minor changes to the milk house. Many of you that watch the channel know that I purchased a Generac whole home backup generator. It's been a couple of years now, and I finally got the motivation needed to get it installed. And our meter base is inside this building, so the generator is going to be close. We got to decide where we're going to put it, how we're going to get gas to it, how we're going to plumb the electric into this building. But fortunately, I have somebody that's going to help me out with that. I've asked Kyle of Spicer Designs. He's here now. He's hiding. Come on out, Kyle.
Just try not to make any noise over there.
So, Kyle, it's nice to meet you. Nice to see you in person again.
Yeah, you're pulling an Adam on me here, you know, but it's all right.
Well, we met at the farm show. I've watched his channel for a while. He's an electrician by trade, and when I met him, I said, well, haven't you put in a whole house generator before? And you said you've done what?
Probably a couple hundred for sure.
Couple hundred of them?
Yeah, lots of them.
So he's the guy for this job. He's gonna help me out figuring out what all we need. We've already done a little bit of a site exploration here to figure out, you know, where we can mount the generator, where I can put gas, how we're gonna get it inside the building. There's kind of a lot to get figured out, and that's the part I struggle with because I don't do it enough. So that's where Kyle comes in, because he's got the expertise to do that, and he's gonna help me lay out a plan. And then I'm the execute guy. I can get it done once you tell me what to do.
Yeah, I just need someone to dig.
I can do that. I can dig. So that's what's coming up. You should check out Kyle's channel in the meantime. Spicer Designs. He does, well, what all do you do on your channel? It's kind of like mine.
Yeah, like yours, lots of variety, metal work, a lot of CNC work with cutting steel and engraving. I've got a couple of machines, a Bobcat excavator and a Coyote tractor, doing a lot of DIY projects around the property. I mean, just a big variety.
And he does a great job with his videos. He's got a nice touch of humor in all of them too that I get a kick out of. So you can go check that out, and then we'll look forward to a video coming up soon where we get this all installed and ready to go. Sound good?
Sounds like a plan.
All right. We got to go do some back end work to figure this all. What? We got to do some back end work to get this figured out, and then I'll let you know when that'll be coming up. So, but thanks for coming out. We got some more planning to do though first. So Kyle was here for that site visit, and we got everything scoped out on what we're going to need for this project. We had extra time. He said he was happy to do and help with any other projects I needed done. So I went ahead and put him to work and said I'd put it in a video. So here you go, Kyle. Thanks for all the help on these projects. But seriously, this is long overdue. I've had that generator for over 2 years now, I think. It's time to get it done. Obviously, all of our electrical comes in from the road to this building, to the meter base that's behind here, and then it's distributed out to everywhere else. There's a line going to the house, there's a line going to the shop, and there's a line going out to the granary, the barn here behind me. So it's going to take a little bit of effort to get it all connected up properly, and the proximity of the generator sitting here next to this building, next to the milk house, is going to make it easy to set the transfer switch and then basically power the whole farmstead if the power goes out. So that'll be really nice to have. We're really looking forward to it. But in the meantime, you should go over and check out Kyle's channel. Make sure you tell him I sent you down in the comments somewhere. He's got a lot of great videos, a lot of great projects. He's a talented guy, so I'm looking forward to having him out here to help me. But until then, I want to thank you so much for clicking on this video. I hope that you liked it, and if I'm lucky, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. There was a bunch of big rocks at the bottom. So I have a pretty good archive of all the pictures I've taken in the past, digital photos from like 2002 and newer, and I looked for hours. I scoured for hours looking for a picture of that old electrical panel with the telephone poles and the boards and the, you know, what I described. So I couldn't find it. So the best you're going to do for this video is an illustration. So hopefully you can visualize that. This is how we did it before AI. Thanks for watching though.
My name is Ella Hoff, and I will be your waitress today. So what would you like? I would like a hot dog and chips, please, with lemonade. Here's your wife's order.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'll get her to-go order. I went ahead and ordered from the grown-up menu. Got my water. And hopefully the waitress is back here soon. Wow.
You can make your own.
Assemble my own BLT?
Yep.
Okay. This looks delicious. So, what's the name of your restaurant?
Little White House.
The Little White House? All right. Well, if you're in the area, check out the Little White House. It's been a good dining experience. I really appreciate it. I had a good meal. Thank you so much.
Oh, and there's an upstairs with an animal shelter.
You have an animal shelter upstairs? All right. Well, if you come to Harlan, check out the Little White House. Thanks. This was a nice lunch break. I'm going to have to get back to work now, okay?
All right.
All right. Bye. Bye.